Welcome to the Power Playbook. Today, we're kicking things off with a deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Starting with Law 1 says, never outshine the master. Sounds simple, right? But it's packed with wisdom. Imagine you're working for someone important, a boss, a teacher, or even a family member with influence. Your first instinct might be to show off your skills, to prove you're the best at what you do. Maybe you're thinking, if I shine, they'll notice me and I'll get ahead. But here's where it gets tricky. If you shine too brightly, you might make that person feel insecure, threatened, or even jealous. And when powerful people feel threatened, they don't clap for you. They push you away. Robert Greene, the genius behind the 48 Laws of Power, explains that people in charge, like CEOs, leaders, or mentors, want to feel like they're the star. They're the sun, and everyone else revolves around them. If you steal their spotlight, even by accident, you're not just showing off, you're stepping into dangerous territory. They might start seeing you as a rival, someone who could take their place. And trust me, that's not a good look. The result? You could get ignored, demoted, or worse, completely cut out. But don't get it twisted. This law isn't about hiding your talents or pretending you're not great. It's about being strategic. The smart move is to make your master, the person above you, feel like they're the smartest, the most capable, the most brilliant. You do that by giving them credit, praising their ideas, and letting them take the lead even when you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Think of yourself as a mirror. Reflect their brilliance, and you'll earn their trust and support. That's how you rise without making enemies. Let's say you're in a meeting and you've got an awesome idea. Instead of saying, hey everyone, check out my plan, try this. I was thinking about what our boss mentioned last week, and I wondered if we could build on it like this. Boom. You're sharing your idea, but you're making your boss look like the visionary. They feel great, you look smart, and nobody's ego gets bruised. That's Law 1 in action. Playing the power game with finesse. Okay, let's hear it straight from the source. Here's how Robert Greene writes Law 1 in the 48 Laws of Power. Never outshine the master. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior. In your desire to please or impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite, inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. That's the law, word for word, and it's a wake-up call. Greene's saying, don't let your ambition blind you. If you make your boss or mentor feel small, you're not climbing the ladder. You're sawing off the branch you're sitting on. But if you make them feel like a king or queen, you're setting yourself up for success. Now, let's get to the juicy part. The historical story Greene uses to bring Law 1 to life. This is straight from the book, and it's about a guy named Nicolas Fouquet, a finance minister in 17th century France, and his epic mistake with none other than King Louis XIV, one of the most powerful monarchs in history. Buckle up, because this story is like a masterclass in what not to do. Here's how it goes, as written in the 48 Laws of Power. In 1661, Fouquet was the superintendent of finances for France, working under King Louis XIV, who was young, ambitious, and just starting to flex his power as king. Fouquet was wealthy, charming, and incredibly talented at his job. He managed France's money like a pro, and he had a reputation for throwing lavish parties and living in a stunning chateau called Vaux-le-Vicomte. Fouquet thought he was untouchable. He was loyal to the king, after all, and he believed his skills made him indispensable. When the king's chief minister, Cardinal Mazarin, died, Fouquet saw a chance to climb even higher. He assumed Louis XIV would need someone new to guide him, and Fouquet thought, why not me? To impress the king and show off his wealth and influence, Fouquet decided to throw the party of the century at his chateau. Greene describes it vividly in the book. In 1661, to honor Louis XIV, Fouquet arranged a fête that included a sumptuous banquet, a comedy by Molière specially commissioned for the occasion, and spectacular fireworks. The whole affair was meant to charm the youthful monarch, but it had the opposite effect. The spectacle was too splendid, the chateau too opulent. Louis was made to feel like a guest in the house of a subject who was wealthier than he. Let's unpack that. Fouquet's party was over the top. Think gourmet feast, a play by a famous playwright, and fireworks lighting up the sky. His chateau was dripping with luxury, marble floors, golden decorations, gardens that looked like paradise. Fouquet thought this would dazzle Louis XIV and prove his loyalty. He even hoped the king would see him as the perfect replacement for Mazarin, someone who could run the kingdom's finances and be the king's right-hand man. But here's where Fouquet messed up big time. He broke Law 1. By throwing this extravagant party, he made himself shine brighter than the king. Louis XIV, who was only 23 but fiercely proud, walked into Vaux-le-Vicomte and saw a palace grander than anything he owned. He saw Fouquet living like a king, surrounded by nobles who were practically bowing to him. Instead of feeling flattered, Louis felt humiliated. Greene explains it perfectly in the book. To Louis, it was as if Fouquet were flaunting his wealth and power, implying that he was greater than the king himself. Louis could not tolerate such a display. Louis started to suspect Fouquet was up to no good, maybe even stealing from the royal treasury to fund his lavish lifestyle. But more than that, Louis felt overshadowed. He was the Sun King, the center of France, and no one was supposed to outshine him. Fouquet's party wasn't just a party. It was a power move that backfired spectacularly. So what happened next? Greene tells us. 3 weeks after the fete, Louis had Fouquet arrested on charges of embezzlement. Fouquet was subjected to a trial, found guilty, and spent the rest of his life in a prison cell. That's right. Fouquet went from being one of the most powerful men in France to rotting in a dungeon. Louis didn't just fire him, he crushed him. The king used charges of financial misconduct as an excuse, but the real reason was clear. Fouquet had made Louis feel small, and Louis couldn't let that slide. After Fouquet's fall, Louis took inspiration from Vaux-le-Vicomte and built his own palace, Versailles, to make sure he was the one dazzling the world. Fouquet's mistake cost him everything. Let's break down why this happened. Fouquet wasn't trying to insult the king. He thought he was being generous, showing off his loyalty. But he didn't understand Louis's ego. By displaying his own wealth and influence so boldly, he made the king feel like a guest in his own kingdom. Instead of praising Louis or tying the party to the king's greatness, Fouquet put himself in the spotlight. He didn't make Louis feel superior. He made him feel second best. That's the exact opposite of Law 1. What could Fouquet have done differently? Imagine if he'd thrown the party at Louis's palace, or dedicated every part of it to the king's glory. Maybe saying, "This is all to celebrate your majesty's reign." He could have used his wealth to make Louis look like the star, not himself. That might have earned him the king's trust instead of his wrath. The lesson here is brutal but clear. When you're dealing with someone more powerful, never let your light shine brighter than theirs. Okay, Fouquet's story is epic, but let's bring Law 1 into today's world with a modern example. Meet Sarah, a talented graphic designer who joined a tech startup last year. Sarah was fresh out of school, full of ideas, and eager to prove herself. Her boss, Michael, was the creative director, a guy who'd built the company's brand from scratch and loved being seen as the creative genius. Sarah got assigned to a big project, designing a new app interface. She poured her heart into it, creating a sleek, innovative design that was miles better than the company's usual work. At the next team meeting, Sarah couldn't wait to share. She presented her mock-ups to the whole team, including Michael and the CEO, walking them through every detail, cool animations, bold colors, the works. The CEO was impressed, saying, "Wow, this is next level." Sarah beamed, thinking she'd just secured her spot as a rising star. But then she noticed Michael. He was quiet, arms crossed, not saying a word. Sarah didn't think much of it until things started to change. Over the next month, Michael stopped giving her big projects. He'd nitpick her work, saying things like, "This isn't quite what I had in mind." He even presented parts of her design to clients as his own idea, barely mentioning her. Sarah was crushed. She thought her talent would get her noticed, but instead, she was being pushed to the sidelines. Confused, Sarah talked to a coworker, Lisa, who'd been at the company longer. Lisa said, "You're too good," and Michael's feeling it. He's used to being the creative guy. When you wowed the CEO, you made him look ordinary. That's when it clicked for Sarah. She'd broken Law 1. By shining so brightly in that meeting, she'd accidentally made Michael feel like he wasn't the star anymore. He wasn't going to fire her, but he was definitely holding her back to protect his ego. Sarah decided to switch things up. For the next project, she had another great idea, but this time, she played it smart. She went to Michael privately and said, "I was thinking about your approach to clean design, and I had an idea that might fit your vision. Could I show you?" She walked him through her concept, asking for his feedback and framing it as an extension of his style. Michael lit up. He made a few tweaks, but he loved it. At the next meeting, Michael presented the idea, with Sarah chiming in to support him. The CEO loved it again, and this time Michael praised Sarah in front of everyone, saying, "She's been a great help on this." From then on, things changed. Michael started giving Sarah more responsibility, inviting her to client meetings, and even recommending her for a promotion 6 months later. By making Michael feel like the master, Sarah didn't just save her career, she set herself up to grow. She learned that talent is important, but strategy is everything. If she'd kept outshining Michael, she might have stayed stuck, or worse, gotten pushed out. This story shows Law 1 in the real world. Sarah's mistake was assuming her work would speak for itself. But power dynamics don't work that way. By lifting Michael up, she gained his trust and opened doors for herself. Think about your own life. Maybe you've worked with someone who needed to feel like the boss. How did you handle it? That's the kind of question Law 1 forces you to ask. Before we wrap up, a quick shout out to the Power Playbook. We're here to break down books like The 48 Laws of Power, giving you the tools to navigate life's challenges with strategy and smarts. If this video helped you, smash that like button. It means the world. And subscribe with that bell icon so you never miss a video. We've got tons more coming your way.